early 2000s, like 2001, 2002, somewhere in there.
Okay.
My dad, for his company, had rented a house. He had a construction company. He rented a house in Pleasanton, California. It's kind of like just off the highway. I was trying to get the address to send it to you guys so you can kind of look into it, but I couldn't. I wasn't able to get it. And anyway, a little cul-de-sac, and it was like a 2-story house, but it was on a hill, so the main level was actually the second story. And when you go inside, there was a staircase that would lead down. You could go down to the lower levels. So I was there with my brother one day. I think it was during the summer. We were out of school, and I was about probably 13 or 14, and he would have been like 9 or 10. And we were in my dad's office, which is also the bedroom, and playing chess, I believe. And I heard there was a knock at the door. So I got up and I walked down the hall to the door and opened it up, and there was nobody there. So it was like, oh, okay, that's fine. It's like, close the door, went back to the room, go back to what we were doing. A few minutes later, another knock at the door. So I got up a little more hurriedly than this time and walked, back down the hallway, opened the door, and called out, like, hello. No one was there. So I kind of stepped out into the yard. The way that it was shaped, the garage kind of came on the left-hand side, kind of came out towards the street, and the front door was kind of set back, and the house was kind of more flush from that point all the way to the right to where it wrapped around into the backyard. And then the perimeter of like the lawn was lots of foliage and bushes and trees and things like that. So it kind of created like a little, like, kind of not really a courtyard, but an isolated area in the front of the house. Mm-hmm. So I step outside and I'm, calling out, and don't see anybody in the driveway, nothing. So I'm like, okay. So I go back inside, back to the room, and a few minutes later, another knock at the door. So I run down the hall, whip open the door, run outside, like run into the street, looking around on the side of the house, nothing, like nobody's out there. So I'm like, okay, this is like, so at this point I'm kind of annoyed. I remember they thinking someone was screwing with us.
Right.
So I went back into the bedroom, closed the bedroom door, and was like, I'm done with them. I'm just gonna ignore it. So then a few minutes go by, and there's another knock on the bedroom door. Very clearly on the bedroom door. Both of us like realized right away it was on the bedroom door. So I got up and opened the door, and no one was there. There was no one else in the house. Oh, sorry, there was somebody else in the house. He was a kid about my age. He was a son of one of my dad's guys. Very artsy guy, extremely artsy type of guy. Introvert to the extreme, not interested in pranking, period. I went downstairs and asked him anyway. And he was just in his room, either drawing pictures or watching anime, whatever it was. Maybe a combination of both. So anyway, we mentioned it to my dad. My dad's like, oh, that's weird. And that was pretty much the end of it for a few years. And then we were sitting around the table at some point at a party or something, and either I or my brother brought it up. And my dad was like, oh, yeah. And we're like, what? Wait, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, there was some weird stuff going on at that house. And we're like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, we didn't want to tell you because, we still wanted you to stay there and we didn't want you to be scared. But you weren't the only people. He's like, I experienced a lot of things, and a lot of the workers experienced a lot of things, and people were freaked out. And so we kind of pressed him on it. And he told us basically that among the things they experienced, everyone experienced the knocking. My dad experienced several times where he'd get up in the middle of the night freezing in the middle of winter, and he'd go out and check the thermostat, and the thermostat was like physically turned all the way down to like the maximum cold. He let's see, at one day he was sitting at his desk drawing or doing something, and he thought he saw a figure walk by the far end of the house, probably 50 feet or so, walk from the kitchen to the garage, and then he heard the garage door open and close. And so he called out and asked, and no one responded. And so he walked down there, opened the garage door, only car in the garage was his, and there was no one there. And then one day, for me the biggest thing was one day he came home and he walked into the garage, and he heard the way he describes it, he heard voices. He heard 3 distinct individuals, he said, but each individual sounded like a like a room full of people, like a cacophony of people sitting over, like kind of talking over each other,
Huh.
like whispered voices.
Right.
And so he was like, he starts calling out, and nobody answered, and so he walks down this. He kind of pinpoints that he realizes it's coming from downstairs. So he walks downstairs, and when you get to the bottom of the stairs, you kind of make a little like a switchback to the right and walk down this hallway. And there were 2 bedrooms in this hallway. So he passed the first door, and heard it at the further end of the hallway. Approached the second door, and as soon as his hand touched the doorknob to open it up, the voices stopped immediately. So he opened it up, and there was no one in the room. So at that point, he was really freaked out, and he actually started playing like gospel music and such throughout the house at that point, moving forward.
Nice.
And
Nice.
And after he started doing that, it all went away almost immediately.
Oh.
Like
Whoa.
everything stopped.
Nice.
So the only other thing that he said, the only other clue we had was that he at one point, so there, at the end of that hallway where the 2 bedrooms were, there was a door that was closed, and it was there was no doorknob on it, just a deadbolt, and it had been explained to him that it was like basically storage for the owners. They just wanted to store stuff there. So the owners were, he said Persian, I think he means Iranian, and at one point the guys, some of the construction guys, because they were freaked out, and these were like, they're like tough. Like, some of these guys have been to prison. Like these are like not like sissy guys. Like they're tough guys. And so they used their tools and took the door, the door off the hinges to get into that, because they wanted to know what was on the other side of that room. And what he said, there was a bunch of like statues, and they were like swords and shields and figurines and things like that, all from the Middle East. That were all like old, either family heirlooms or something.
Wow.
So best we can figure is there was something that was probably attached to one of those items.
Yeah.
Or several things attached from those items, and it was kind of emanating out from there.
Wow. So before, I know you have another one you want to tell us. I just want to say
a
few things really quick, because I'm thinking about them while you're talking. The first is, I knew a very similar story from a house. I knew people who had a house, and they were having very similar experiences that you were talking about. Knocking. They would also have weird high-pitched ringing in their ears a lot whenever they were in this house or driving by it. And they were renting it from a woman who was like a widow, and also she lost her son in Vietnam. And there was a room, like you say, that they weren't allowed to go in because it was storage. They were getting driven mad by these knocks, sounds in their ears, and other things, and also hearing music. So they had to go into that room, and they found all of the dead son's stuff that was sent back from Vietnam, and his radio, and the radio kept going on to supposedly the music he liked, and they would see the knob turn, according to her. I wasn't there, so I can't verify it, but it's interesting because they had very similar situation, and they moved, and at any time they moved, like down the road, and anytime they drove by the house, they still had ringing in their ears, and at one point she almost crashed her car because of that. And then the other thing real quick was you gave us a lot of really good details in the beginning of your story, and I'm curious if you think there's anything to the architecture of the house having something to do with it, because you talk about how it's built into a hill and you have to walk downstairs, and you're kind of like, houses that are built into hills are weird to me. That's the kind of house I grew up in. I also believe had a lot of weird issues. Do you think having to like walk into a house and then walk down into basically earth, from what it sounds like, has anything to do with this situation?
No, I don't think so.
Interesting. What do you think was going on?
Well, I build houses now. Like I'm in a company that builds houses now, and when you have a house like that, it's you're not really digging. It's not like it wasn't a basement.
Okay.
It was more like when they built it, they would have excavated like a portion of it out in order to build the house, top and bottom. They would reinforce that front wall on the lower story with like a block wall. It's not like they like cut into the dirt. It's more like very little would have been excavated. They would have pulled a little bit off the top of that, the topsoil off the side of that hill, and that's about it.
When you were downstairs in the house, are there windows down there?
Yes. So when you go downstairs, the back was totally exposed. Like it was a steep hill.
Gotcha. When I would go downstairs in our house, there was literally a room that had windows, but the windows were to dirt. It was very bizarre.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that's different. Yeah. Okay. This one was, there were windows in all the downstairs bedrooms out into the backyard, and the backyard kind of sloped down.
Okay.
And it was a dramatic slope. It was probably like a 14-12 pitch slope.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So it was. Yeah. So I don't think it wasn't like it was built underground or anything like that.
Like they disturbed something.
I just think there was something attached to some of those items.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
that's what I
And then, yeah, so you had another story. Let's hear that.
Yeah, so this one's totally unrelated, and this one's actually from last year. So,
Cool.
um, in January or February of last year, I had a dream, and I didn't. I don't usually have like narrative dreams that I can follow, and I very rarely remember dreams. But this one, it was just different.
Hmm.
So, in the dream, I'm driving around. I'm back in. We live in Tennessee now, but I'm in the dream. I'm back in California, in Fresno, and I'm driving around with my grandma, and uh, we pulled into into like a little shopping like strip mall that's there. I know the cross street of where it was in the dream. Um, so we pull in there, and because we were hungry, want to get something to eat, and the parking lot was very crowded. We found a spot, and we get out, but the strip mall wasn't like it is in reality. It was more like an open air market type of thing,
Hmm.
and it was all like Hispanic themed. So it was all like there were like pinatas and sombreros and mariachi music playing, and everything was very colorful and all this stuff. And so I'm walking around with her looking for a burrito or something, and and so I go to get some food, and when I come back, I'm looking for her and I can't find her, and so I'm looking around, and then I realize that I'm standing next to my grandpa. My grandpa passed away in 2006, and so and I realized in the dream that that was the case, that he wasn't alive, that he was, you know, but he was there, and so I
Right.
thought, well, this is weird. And I think I even might have thought like I don't usually dream about him in the dream, so he didn't. I don't believe he didn't say anything to me, and I can't remember if he looked right at me or if he kind of looked past. I think he looked at me but didn't say anything, and then he kind of looked past me or like kind of looked beyond me. Um, and then I just felt kind of calm, and then I woke up. And so when I woke up, I thought I knew immediately what the dream meant. And so when my wife woke up, I told her about the whole thing, and she was like a little confused because I never tell her dreams because I never have dreams like that. So I I told her, I'm like, I think my grandma's going to die on Cinco de Mayo.
Whoa.
And she was like, oh, well, that's okay, interesting. So we talked a little bit about it, and that was pretty much it. And I just like, that's what I think it meant. So a couple months go by. I did end up also telling my mom about it like a month or two later, and she was like, oh, well, that's weird. And then May 5th rolls around, and at the end of the day, I just gotten home, and I got a call from my aunt, and I was like, okay. And actually, let me preface that. So my wife and our newborn son had flown out there, and I'd made a point to make sure that my wife took him by to see her, because she hadn't
Wow.
met him. So she took him there to meet my son, and we have some pictures with him and her, and that was all great. And then that was like on the 4th, and then on the 5th, my aunt called and said grandma was in dialysis, and she started getting really just like not there, like just very loopy,
Hmm.
and she was very confused, and so they called an ambulance and took her to the ER, and they determined that her kidneys were in full failure. She had basically zero function in both kidneys, and that she has decided that she didn't want any more treatment.
Whoa.
And so I was like, oh, okay. So I got to talk to her, but like on FaceTime, and told her, and she just basically said, look, I'm fine. Like, don't be upset. I'm ready to go be with grandpa. And that's just it. And my aunt was saying that she was seeing my grandpa. Like, I'm not
Wow.
sure. Yeah. So anyway, a few days went by, and then I decided, I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a few days off work and fly out there and see if I can. Like, I was trying to decide if I wanted to go see her before she passed or be there for the funeral, because I didn't know how long it was going to take, and I didn't want to be gone for too long. So,
Hmm.
but I decided it was better to be there and see her if I could. So
Yeah.
I flew out and went and visited her, and I kind of sat in her room with her. She was in hospice at that point, and she woke up briefly and saw me, and she smiled but didn't say anything. And then she just kind of sat there quietly for a few minutes, and then she kind of went back to sleep. So I saw her about 2 or 3 more times while I was there. And then on the day that I was leaving, I woke up in the morning and got a text from my mom that she passed the night before around 3 a.m.
Wow. Wow.
So So at that point I realized, okay, I'd misinterpreted the dream because I had a preconceived notion about death and dying. I had always thought either you were alive or you were dead. If you're not dead, then you're alive, and if you're not alive, then you're dead, and that's as cut and dry as it is.
Mm.
But I realize now that I was mistaken, that there's a place in between, and so I think that my dream was telling me that my grandpa was coming back for her on the 5th of May. And she was going to start that process, and it was a process. So
right, she chose to accept that reality on the 5th, from what I believe you're saying, and then you were able to have a rather beautiful moment to have your kid out there taking pictures, which is
and I might
wild.
not have pushed hard to I might not have pushed as hard to get my wife to bring him by there to see her if I hadn't had that in the back of my mind.
Right.
So. I've tried. I've thought about it a lot and tried to explain it. I'm a very rational person. I've tried to explain it. I've gone as far to say, I knew she wasn't in great health. Maybe I subconsciously just did the math and figured that someone in renal failure can only last. I was an EMT for a little while, so I was like, maybe I just. But then I'm giving myself too much credit. I'm not that smart, so.
Right.
Well, it's crazy because I was just telling a story how I had a dream about my grandmother. She came to me in a dream and she had already been passed, but now I feel like I need to reevaluate that dream.
Yeah.
I mean, it's moving though, but thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Wow. That is.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. As sad as it is, it's beautiful you had that moment for your family. I think that's.
I agree.
Obviously, you can't interpret every dream as something you need to turn into an action in real life, but you knew intuitively that I got to do it, and grandparents are very important, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
So, thanks.
And she was my last grandparent at that point. So
wow.
So but yeah, to what you just said, it wasn't like I woke up and I sorted through it and figured it out. I knew right away what it meant.
Right.
I knew almost immediately.
Right.
I was just the only thing I was like, okay, what's all the Mexican stuff? And then I was like, oh, Cinco de Mayo. And then as soon as I thought it, I was like, I just confirmed it in my head. I was like, that's what it is. So that was really weird. It was just like a knowing.
It's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's that rather beautiful yet sad story.
Yeah, it's kind of like the movie Coco though too.
Yeah, Coco's a great movie.
Coco's great. It's a great movie.
Yeah.
That's funny. My daughter was talking about watching that today. So.
Oh, weird.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. Are you a psychic, dude?
I know what's happening.
Are you a psychic? We don't know yet.
Something about the Mexican culture
and Disney stuff on their little remote and came across Coco. She's like, look what I found. And I was like,
wait, are you Mexican though too?
No, I'm not at all.
Not that you know of. Now it's like the next dream you have. Yeah, you're like, oh wait, I'm Mexican this whole time. No one told me.
Well, 25%. I'm sitting in the shade right now. So I don't
well, look. I'm white as they come, and I'm Puerto Rican.
Yeah. That's true.
You never know.
It's true. Well, hey man, have a great night. Thank you for the phone call.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
That was crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah.
That's crazy.
I believe that shit.
Yeah, I think some dreams can give you some type of insight to the future. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But there are just certain things. I know I've experienced that on a way smaller scale. Where throughout my life I've had dreams that come true, and I don't know. Maybe it was maybe when it happens, I'm then confusing my dream because it's you forget the dream.
Right.
It happens wait, why do I know that? And you're like, oh, I had a dream about it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if
deja
that's
vu though too.
Yeah. But that, he woke up, he told his wife.
Yeah.
He told his mom a month later. According to him, people were hearing it, the story, and then she began the process of death on May 5th. That's insane.